to probably near the Situation Room this morning. We're going to go back to the top breaking story, which is war in the Middle East. Trey Yingst is live on the ground in Israel, and we're getting more details and reports about this crossfire between the two countries. Trey?
Yeah, guys, we're here in central Israel as rescue crews are digging through the rubble in the aftermath of an Iranian ballistic missile attack. They believe there are people buried under this debris. There's one son of a father who is trapped underneath this rubble. He's wearing a hospital gown because last night, after the Iranians attacked this apartment building, he was taken to a nearby medical center, and he has come back and he's waiting to see if his father will come out alive. It's a very sad scene here, and it is tense as these rescue workers look to see if they can find anyone still trapped. You'll see these chains here on the side of this building. There's a large crane that's being used to lift these pieces of concrete up and out of the way so that rescue crews can go back in. You also hear a buzzing sound in the distance. That is a drone that is trying to help with this rescue operation. And you're going to see right now, I'm just going to show you, they're going to pull this large piece of cement, and this is what they have been doing all morning. There were multiple people killed in this individual strike, but there were more than 70 ballistic missiles fired toward the population of Israel last night, some of them slamming into the ground below, killing at least 7 people. I do now want to bring in a former IDF spokesman, Major Doron Spielman, to talk about what we know about this ongoing operation to target Iranian nuclear sites and also to target the top IRGC officials who are ordering these ballistic missile attacks. Doron, thank you for joining us. What should the American people know about what is happening here in Israel?
Well, first of all, right behind me, Trey, this is the reason why we took out that surprise initiative, the preemptive strike against Iran. They've been saying for years, Trey, that this is what they're going to do. They're going to destroy and eliminate the Israeli people. This is with a non-nuclear warhead. This entire building coming down, people trapped beneath the rubble. Can we imagine if Iran was able to have a nuke? There's no army bases here. This is the middle of a neighborhood. There's a kindergarten across the street. This is what Israel had to stop. And for the United States that stands behind Israel, the same Iran that's threatening Israel threatens the United States. The United States right now has an option in front of them. They've helped us do this. However, the president has a choice to go down in history as protecting the United States from a nuclear Iran. That will decide what happens in the next few days.
My last question has to do with what comes next. We are seeing waves and waves of Iranian ballistic missiles slamming into cities across Israel. Women and children were killed last night. Israeli leaders are here today as these rescue teams dig for survivors. What comes next? How does this end?
This is the same front like the pilots that are striking Iran. We knew when we struck Iran, which is a historic opportunity, they would respond. The Israeli public has been prepared for this. They know that our aerial defense is not 100%. I can hear them out front saying, long live the state of Israel. This is the front line, and these families are truly heroes. We will do everything we can to stop this, but as a nation, this is an existential moment. We will stay strong until this is taken care of, but we can't do it alone. We hit the first shot. The United States is going to have to take the final blow against this to knock Iran out of the picture and allow a new region to rebuild. It's in our hands, Trey. The opportunity to have a world free of a nuclear Iran is up to the United States and Israel.
Doron, thank you very much. Major Doron Spielman, a former IDF spokesman. But just to recap, guys, what we know here, behind me in central Israel, there are rescue teams digging through the debris. They're using these chains to try and lift concrete blocks off of the foundation of this building where they believe people are trapped under the rubble. We do expect more Iranian ballistic missiles to target Israel tonight as the Israeli air campaign against the regime in Tehran continues. Guys.
So obviously we know that Israel is now striking back at Iran and specifically targeting some of those nuclear sites. Is that an indication that when they struck those nuclear sites the first time, that they did not actually get done what they wanted to get done?
It is. And look, the two main nuclear sites that were hit, one is called Isfahan and the other is called Natanz. These are facilities that are used to enrich uranium, part of the component needed to create a nuclear weapon. But the Fordow nuclear facility has not yet been hit, and it is believed many of the mechanisms created by the Iranian regime are held deep underground. And the conversation that we have heard from officials here, even before this round of conflict, this war that erupted between Israel and Iran began, is that the Fordow facility is the one that the Israelis may not have the munition they need to target. But the bottom line here is that this is going to escalate before it is complete. I spoke yesterday with a senior Israeli intelligence official who said the Israelis hope this could be over in a matter of days if they keep up the rate of this campaign. But given the fact that these Iranian ballistic missiles are still raining down on Israeli cities, we were here last night, you could hear the explosions echoing throughout this major population center. This is an indication that the Israelis are going to ramp up their strikes against the regime in Tehran. And just today, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, saying that every single military target in the Iranian capital is on the table. Guys,
Trey, on that topic, is it your sense that the rate of strikes from Israel and the targets they're hitting is a plan they created before the first strike? Or is there any of this that looks like an immediate response to, well, you've killed more of our civilians than you should have, we're going to hit you here now? The escalation, if you want to call it that, the progression of of what they're targeting, does it seem like it's according to plan?
According to officials that we talked to, things are going better than planned for the Israeli army. And when we consider what's happened over the past 2 days, there still is an escalation ladder in all of this. The opening volley of strikes conducted by the Israelis not only went after nuclear facilities, it also targeted top nuclear scientists and the leader of the IRGC and many of his top commanders. Just yesterday, there was a gas field in Iran that was hit near to the southern city of Bandar Abbas. The Israelis waited to hit that facility, and an Israeli official told me they just did one strike, and that strike was meant to send a message to the Iranians that they can start targeting energy infrastructure belonging to the regime. And that is likely what we are going to see in the hours and days ahead. The Israelis striking more energy and military targets in Iran, and the Iranians targeting major cities like Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa in the north. Just last night, one of those barrages rained down on Haifa. A lot of the Israeli energy infrastructure is located there.
Trey, you spoke
And guys,
about...
if I can just stay with you here for a moment, I want to just show you, because these crews, now that they moved this large block, they are now digging once again, trying to get to some of the people that are trapped under the rubble. I do, again, just want to tell you the story of this son who is waiting just a block away from where we're standing. And when we arrived, he was sitting in a wheelchair, dressed in a hospital gown. And he was staring into the distance. And it looked like his girlfriend or his wife was sitting next to him, holding his hand. And a family friend came up to our crew, and we talked to him, and he said, our friend is trapped under the rubble. And he was talking about the father of this man. And he said he's 50 years old. His name's Meir. And he was a kind man who lived in this building. But he went out of the shelter to get his phone, and that's when the blast happened. His son was injured again, taken to a local hospital. And the son, although he was wounded, demanded that this team of doctors and nurses take him back to the blast site just hours after, still in his hospital gown and wheelchair, to wait for his father to be pulled from the rubble. This gives you a sense of the Israeli people, and I think also the feeling here. The Israelis understand these are going to be difficult days ahead, but they're not giving up, and they're not giving up hope. And again, at this moment, as we are talking to you here, they truly are hoping for a miracle. They're hoping that Meir, that father, is pulled from the debris behind me. We know that many people were unfortunately killed at this location. But again, they believe that there are still at least 2 people still alive, trapped under this debris. And they're hoping for an outcome that could bring them home, get them to a hospital, and reunite them with their loved ones. Guys?
Trey, I've got a couple questions for you. One, you had a really interesting interview with a man earlier. He seemed really determined. This is our moment of opportunity to take out these nuclear sites that are threatening Israel. Is that the sentiment that you're feeling sort of I know you're talking to lots of people. Is that the overwhelming sentiment there? Now is the time we're willing to put up with this kind of devastation, this kind of danger, in order to take advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, look, we've been talking to sources across the region. There's a bird that he just pulled out from there. He just pulled a pigeon that was alive under the rubble. We've been talking with everyone involved here. We have talked with Israeli officials. We've talked with Qatari officials. We've talked with other Gulf officials. We've talked with the Iranians, gotten statements from the regime, trying to piece together this story. And I can tell you that from an Israeli perspective, they want this to be complete. The source that I talked to yesterday said they don't want to be in the same position 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And they understand that there is close coordination with the Americans. And when I asked for specifics, this intelligence official did not want to go into details of how the Americans are coordinating with the Israelis. This official confirmed the Americans are helping to shoot down these incoming ballistic missiles. But as for intelligence sharing or things like that, the source paused and he said, I just want to tell you, we feel it. We've never been closer with our American counterparts. They are our friends. They are not our colleagues, they are our friends. And that is the sentiment we hear among Israeli officials and the Israeli people, because this is an unprecedented moment for Israel. Again, we have been reporting here on the ground for nearly 7 years. We have seen rocket attacks from Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, precision-guided missiles coming from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, ballistic missiles from the Houthis in Yemen, Iran-backed Iraqi and Syrian Shia militias launching drones and missiles at this country. What we are seeing today, Israel has never faced. And Israeli officials tell us they are fighting for their survival.
Trey,
Guys, back to you.
Trey, you mentioned that there's an emphasis on taking out the energy infrastructure. You mentioned many of the sites that they hit. This morning I read that there was an oil field that was hit, but that oil field is co-owned by Iran and Qatar. What kind of worries are there, or anything you can see as far as the possibility that this now could expand?
This is a really great question, and I also have some reporting on this. And I just want to think through our sourcing on this. This was someone, an official familiar with this oil field and this gas field. You raise an important point. This is a shared gas field. It's the largest field in the world. And on the Iranian side, it starts near to the city of Bandar Abbas in the south. But it goes over, and the Qataris and the Americans are invested in the other side of the gas field. And I spoke with a source who described the Israeli strike against that as a dangerous escalation, because there is concern that if ultimately that gas field is targeted and the Iranians start to respond in the region, that American interests and assets could be hit or affected. And it could lead to an increase in energy prices. It could lead to American forces or embassies in the region coming under attack. And so there are certainly officials in this part of the world that are concerned about the location of these strikes. But the bottom line here is that the Israelis understand the next step up on the escalation ladder for them is going after the energy infrastructure in Iran, the very infrastructure that the regime uses to fund their ballistic missile program that they then use to fire at Israeli cities like the one that we're in central Israel and hit buildings like the one behind me. And so it's all connected. And the region is watching very closely to see what comes next. The question here is, will there be a point that the Iranians throw in the towel and say, look, they're not going to win because the Israelis have that American support, and if it continues to be this bad, the Israelis are going to continue looking to the United States for help. We don't know what comes next. All we know is that according to Israeli officials, this country is bracing for days of intense ballistic missile barrages. We have seen 6 barrages so far, more than 200 missiles streaming through the skies of this country. Last night, as they were targeting the northern city of Haifa, we stood on a balcony and we could see as they were slipping past missile defense systems, others being intercepted in the skies above. And then just about 30 minutes later, another barrage targeting the center part of Israel, one of those missiles slipping past the Arrow defense system and the Patriot system that is also deployed in this country and slamming into this building, killing at least one child, killing civilians that were here asleep in their beds. Some of them rushed to bomb shelters. Others couldn't make it in time. And the aftermath, guys, you see is behind me as these crews are picking up brick by brick, debris by debris, concrete block by concrete block, hoping for a miracle here in the center part of Israel, understanding that there still could be survivors. The father of that man, Ofek, that we talked to earlier, still trapped under the rubble, and they are hoping for a miracle. Guys, back to you.
Trey, I want to go back real quick. You said you were speaking to an official, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm going to try to remember them precisely. Said, we feel it. We're closer with Americans than we've ever been. And then you said that he said these are our allies, our friends, not our colleagues. Did you get any sense that that was directed towards that's how it is now under this administration as opposed to perhaps the last 4 years, or just because of the seriousness of the situation?
I don't want to get into the politics of it, just
Fair
given
enough.
the fact that it's an incredibly complex story. But I'll say right now, according to the sources that we have talked to, they feel the relationship between the United States and Israel is closer than ever. And part of that relationship is a relationship of necessity. I mean, there are more than 100,000 American citizens in this country. This is the key ally of the United States. And President Trump has been very clear. He gave the Iranians a 60-day window to come to the negotiating table. A 6th round of talks was scheduled in Oman. It was supposed to take place today. Of course, those are canceled now. But the bottom line here is that there were diplomatic efforts and they didn't succeed. And as a result, Israel went after Iran's nuclear facilities. They were concerned that the country was pursuing a weapon. They targeted not only nuclear scientists, but also members from Iran's IRGC. And Iran responded with waves of ballistic missiles. And the conclusion to this is that the days ahead are going to be very difficult for Israel. And sources tell us they expect more casualties. They expect more Israelis to be killed in these strikes. But they're bracing to be what an official last night told me would be victorious. They want to win this round with Iran, and they are hoping to weaken the regime.
Trey Yingst, thank you so much. Great reporting, and stay
Absolutely.
safe over there.
Thanks,
Thank you, Trey.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.